Now, I'd like to turn to vaccines and autism again. The CDC have changed their guidance in America, have changed their guidance on vaccines and autism. The guidelines now read, and I'm going to quote, "There are still no studies that support the claim that any of the 20 doses of the 7 infant vaccines recommended for the first year of life do not cause autism," end of quote. The American FDA has accepted that vaccines may cause autism because there is no study to show they are safe. Yet I've sat here repeatedly and earlier tonight and been told by the TGA over and over again that they are safe. You can't be right. Either there is proof they are safe or there is not. Which is it?
Thanks for that question, Senator. So discussed this at length with Senator Antic. Yep. The policy decisions and announcements of the FDA are matters for the FDA, and those questions should be directed to them. I would just highlight a couple of things. It is not my understanding that the FDA has said that vaccines cause autism, as I think you outlined in your question.
Correct.
That's not what they've said.
That's correct.
They've not said that vaccines cause autism.
They've said there are still no studies that support the claim that any of the 20 doses of the 7 infant vaccines recommended do not cause autism.
But I think you went on to say at the end of your question, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the FDA is thereby saying that vaccines cause autism.
Then I said the FDA though has accepted that vaccines may cause autism because there is no study to show they are safe.
Okay. So again, the three-point statement that appeared in November on the CDC's website, which replaced its previous guidance on vaccines and autism, was of a particular wording, and it seemed to me to be quite clear to say it cannot be said. In its view, it cannot be said that vaccines do not cause autism because no studies have shown that it does not cause autism. Now, as I mentioned previously in my response to the question by Senator Antic, there is a fundamental scientific challenge in stating that something exists because you haven't been able to prove that it doesn't. So the scientific process is an individual or a party that makes a scientific claim holds the onus to provide the evidence that that claim is supported. For instance, if you're claiming that vaccines cause autism, the obligation is on you or another person who's claiming that to demonstrate the evidence that supports that claim. The challenge that we have in that space is that a significant amount of the initial conversation around vaccines causing autism arose from a 1997 article by a then Dr. Andrew Wakefield that was published in The Lancet and subsequently retracted and thoroughly debunked because there was personal, professional, ethical and methodological conflicts and flaws. And since then there have been multiple studies over decades involving millions of children and adults who have received different types of vaccines over different years, and in that time there has been no demonstrated causal or associative link between vaccines and autism. So as I say, if there is a claim there, it has never been substantiated by rigorous and dependable evidence, and all of the evidence that we have is supportive of the view that there is no link between vaccines and autism.
In my view, and I think this is probably correct, the approver has the onus to say something's safe. The approver, that's you, the TGA. According to FOI 1345-01, you have 43 sudden unexpected deaths reported on your adverse event management system following injection of Infantrix Hexa vaccine. Are none of those caused by the vaccine?
So I don't know whether Tali Fenner is here. Is that? That's Dan. Okay. So I'll throw to Dr. Dascombe, who's online, to respond to that. I will just say initially, as I have said in response to your questions and the questions of others, and indeed in the conversation that we had previously this evening around MESH, the role of the regulator is to ensure that the risks are managed appropriately such that there is an effective balance for the community between access to a therapeutic product and the benefit that derives from that product and the risk that's presented. And as we've discussed on a number of occasions, overwhelmingly for the COVID vaccine and for other vaccines, the risk-benefit profile is overwhelmingly positive. But Dr. Dascombe, I'll ask you to respond as well.
Thank you, Professor Lawler, and thank you, Senator, for your question. Dr. Daniel Dascombe, Acting Principal Medical Advisor in the Pharmacovigilance Branch at the TGA. To go to sort of both of your questions there, Senator, Professor Lawler has comprehensively answered on 2 occasions now tonight questions around the updated guidance from the US CDC. But I think a couple of things that I'd just reaffirm there, particularly from a post-market regulation of vaccines perspective. The TGA, like our international counterparts, takes an evidence-based approach to the regulation of vaccines registered in Australia. This means that our regulatory decisions are based on the weight of available scientific evidence. And a couple of, I think, key points worth confirming. There is no scientific evidence of a causal link between autism and any vaccine or vaccine ingredient. There is a substantial body of scientific evidence to refute the claim that vaccines are linked to autism. Neither the TGA nor any international regulator has detected nor confirmed a safety signal for autism in any vaccine. Those are, I think, key points to reiterate to your first question. To your second question, I think around reported adverse events with the infant hexa vaccine on our adverse event management system. As you know, Senator, this is a system that relies on spontaneous reports from healthcare professionals, consumers, healthcare, state public health units and medicine sponsors. Reports on there don't necessarily sort of the existence of a report in that system and a report made to us doesn't confirm that the vaccine has caused that death. We encourage reporting of all adverse events, even if there's only a small chance that that vaccine has been related to that death.
Thank you.
Sorry, and thank you for that, Dr. Dascombe. I just want to also just reflect on your comment earlier around the onus on the approver to ensure that something is safe. That is correct. The challenge that every regulator faces in the world is that the only way to ensure that there is no risk in a product is to not approve any product for supply in the country. So that's the only way, and then public would be quite rightly clamouring for access to goods that are enjoyed by populations around the world. So the role of the regulator here in Australia, as in other countries, is to appropriately assure itself that the evidence indicates that the risk-benefit profile is positive, and as Dr. Dascombe's indicated, there's no identified causal link between vaccines and autism.
I'll take you back to, you weren't here, sorry, but Professor Skerritt. I asked him a question about the testing of the COVID Pfizer shots in Australia. He said, oh, no, we didn't do any testing. We relied upon the FDA in America. And at that time, it had already been stated prior to that the FDA did no testing itself and relied on Pfizer. And Pfizer cut short its trials because of the number of people who died. So we had a failed study that led to the approval of vaccines, of COVID injections in this country. And no one knew about it. Yet it was open public knowledge in the United States. So let me continue. Yep. A Korean study published in Biomarket Research in September this year followed up 8.4 million Koreans and found as follows. Within a 12-month period following their COVID jab, the vaccinated group had a 27% greater chance of being diagnosed in that 12-month period with cancer when compared to an unvaccinated group. This was a massive study. And this does not prove causation, although many studies I've shared with you prove how these products cause cancer. It does prove correlation. Do you still maintain that COVID vaccines are safe?
So I do not recall, Senator, an article that you shared with me that does prove causation between these vaccines and cancer. And also, given the need to analyse the documents, I don't have the article that you're describing in front of me, so I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment on it specifically.
Okay, I'll check that. On November 28, 2025, Dr. Vinay Prasad, Director of the FDA's, American FDA's Centre for Biologics Evaluation and Research, sent an email first reported by the New York Times, described findings from a recent internal FDA review of paediatric deaths reported to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, VAERS, between 2021 and 2024. According to the memo, an analysis of 96 reported paediatric deaths ages 7 to 18 concluded that at least 10 were causally linked to COVID-19 vaccines, primarily due to vaccine-induced myocarditis. Prasad described this as a profound revelation. Professor Kidd, do you acknowledge that paediatric vaccines can cause death?
to take that on notice.
You can't acknowledge it, or you can.
I'm going to take it on notice.
The FDA announced.
I'm happy to provide some comment on that if you
Sure.
like, Senator. We did respond to questions around Dr. Prasad's announcement earlier this evening when questioned by Senator Antic. We have not, as far as I'm aware, and Dr. Dascombe, please feel free to correct me, we've not at this stage been provided with information regarding that. As we have indicated previously, we rely not only on our own information that comes through our own adverse event monitoring system, but also on signals that come from other regulators. This is not a signal that's been replicated, to my knowledge, in other regulators. And as I say, we have not had detailed information regarding Dr. Prasad's claim shared with us. In terms of the question that you posed to Professor Kidd, one of the reasons we have robust post-market vigilance in place for medicines, devices and in fact all therapeutic goods that we regulate is because that we recognise that individuals sometimes react to medicines. I mean, if I give you an example, we have a number of other medicines, non-vaccine medicines, to which individuals can have allergic reactions. So it would be inappropriate of I think, either Professor Kidd or myself to say that people can't react to these things. Our role as the regulator is to ensure that appropriate systems are in place to identify safety signals as they arise, to analyse them, to understand them and to respond to them in an appropriate way.